Welcome to part 3 of chapter 26, The Defeat of the Bad Guys. Now, the good guys are pretty much everybody but Germany, Italy, and Japan. But the ones that have the most power right now are Great Britain and the United States. And when I say Great Britain, I really mean England. The French in exile are trying, but let's be real, most of their population um, has been under German control. There are underground networks, and not literally underground necessarily, but resistance movements in every country in which the Nazis have taken control. In some, they're able to do things like hide Jews in the attic and whatever. And others, they do things like blow up train tracks. There's every little bit helps. Um, I mean, I know we've all read The Diary of Anne Frank, and when you think about the how close they came to being safe, being free, and who was it that turned them in, and why? What on earth could their motivation have been? There were people all over Europe that were taking risk for everybody from their Jewish housekeeper to their Jewish doctor to, the guy they don't know but rode the bus with every day. But everything right now is depending on the French, the British, the Soviets, and the Americans. But coming from the West onto the beaches of France, it is the British and the Americans. Now, this ship, I know you've seen these before in war movies. This whole end right here lets down. So when they get in shallow waters, the end of the ship tips down. The guys come running out. They hit the ground. The problem is the enemy fire was so constant, so heavy, that a lot of these stopped in water that was too deep. And very many of these guys, in addition to full uniforms and boots, had on packs that weighed 40, 50, 60 pounds. And quite a few of them actually drowned. Um, Obviously, many, many more reached the beach. And this is what we call D-Day. If you watch the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, I talked to some elderly veterans when the movie came out, and they all agreed that that was the best movie version of what it was really like that they had ever seen. Um, I remember an old guy named Mr. Fox, who, when we were talking about it, his eyes actually welled up. And he said it was almost like watching documentary footage. So give that movie a look if you can. It's one of those movies that everybody in your family is going to like. It's amazing. Anyway, so how did we get away with invading all up and down the beaches of France without it being worse than it was, even getting ashore? Aha. Now, you're going to have to follow me on this because it requires you to know stuff that you don't know already. You may or may not have heard of a guy named General Patton, George Patton. They made a movie about him. He was amazing. He was tough. They called him old, what was it, blood and guts. He was the general that the Nazis most feared. And how do we know this? Because we intercepted a lot of their communication. Um, However, Patton didn't seem to understand that just because a guy had no wounds didn't mean he wasn't wounded. Whether it was traumatic brain injury, whether it was PTSD, shell shock, whatever, Patton got in trouble once for slapping a soldier, apologized, kind of got away with it, and then did it again. Um, so he has been sidelined. The Nazis don't believe it, though. They think we're making it up because surely we would not take our biggest, toughest, ablest general and pull him from the field. This is the guy that made it across Italy in like 2 days with a full battalion. Um, you really got to watch Patton the movie. I know I got a little bit of hero worship going on here, and I know he did some bad things, but it's awesome. Anyway, we realize we can use their fear and kind of admiration of Patton to our advantage. And Patton, being a soldier, goes along with it. He feels like he's been sidelined. He feels like he's been unnecessarily pulled from where he does the most good, but he does as he's ordered. He and a very small battalion of men go to the north of England, where they set up a fake camp, inflatable tanks, um, empty tents, battalions that march in and out in different uniforms, but are all the same, 75 men or whatever. It's called a shadow army. We did a lot of this in different places, but this was to make the Nazis think, yes, we're preparing to invade, but we're going to invade way to the north near Calais. Don't bother looking at the south of France. This is amazing. They don't, I mean, best case scenario, they pull everybody. They don't. They leave everything manned, but not as heavily as it would have been. They move a lot of their troops further north. And then here we come. We push the Germans back from the coast. We push them into France. The Soviets grabbed them, pushed them out of different Eastern European countries, which causes a problem later because the Soviets push the Germans out, and then they go, well, we're going to stay to keep the peace. And then they stay for 4 decades. We also have the atomic bomb. The war ends with Germany in August of 45. No, April of 45. Hitler commits suicide. His body is burned. The Russians reach Berlin with the rest of the Allies close behind. The camps are freed. And the regular soldiers did not know what they were getting into. They saw the camps. They thought they were work camps or POW camps. And then they came across hell. So we have VE Day, Victory in Europe. And people are happy and we're dancing and that, but we've still got Japan. We fight on, and then the numbers guys crunch some numbers and they tell President Truman that unless we do something drastic, this could go on for as long as another year and a half. Hundreds of thousands more Americans and British and other allies dead. Truman, who has become president in the spring of 45 when FDR dies in office after being elected for a fourth time, Truman has no idea we have nuclear weapons. I'm not sure he knew what a nuclear weapon was because who would? He is told about it when he becomes president, and a lot of people later, second guessing what he did, say, oh, this is racist. He would not have dropped these bombs had they been Anglo-European instead of Eurasian or Asian. And Truman said, no, I would have done whatever it took to save American lives. I believe that. Everything I've read about Harry Truman says he was a stand-up kind of guy. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are the only two civilian centers ever impacted by an atomic bomb. We are the only people to have ever dropped one on people. Everybody else has tested them. We tested ours outside of Las Vegas, and then people took sand home as a souvenir. We dropped 2 bombs, hundreds of thousands did. There are 3 days between the first bomb and the second bomb in which we give the Japanese time to surrender. They don't. So then we drop the second one. Now, the first one, when we warn them, this is like nothing you've ever seen. It's the bomb to beat all bombs. Oppenheimer says, I have become death, destroyer of worlds. Nobody believes this. Everybody hypes their stuff. So we figured we're going to have to drop one. We drop it, and because human beings actually melted. The Japanese people feel a very, very strong loyalty to their emperor, and they feel like they are letting him down if they don't fight till there's nobody left standing. The emperor actually has to come on the radio and tell them, stop. We are surrendering. This is it. Um, why did we drop the bombs? I really, like I said, I believe it was to end the war as quickly as possible with as few overall deaths and as few Allied deaths as possible. Now, you could explain how the war was paid for. You could explain the role that women played. African Americans, no, don't worry too much about the Zoot Suit riots. Korematsu is about the internment camps. Truman dropped the bomb to save lives. You may get um, documents that ask you to make that point. I can't imagine you would ever get them to go in the other direction because no reputable historian buys um, the whole he just wanted to kill Japanese people theory. Um, I think it bothered Harry Truman the rest of his life. There's a wonderful, wonderful biography just called Truman, and it talks about what a good basic man he was. He did not wake up one day and go, think I'll kill hundreds of thousands. He woke up and said, how can I save the most Americans possible? Anyway, that is our chapter. Look up the Blitz for the British. Um, watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Um, watch Foyle's War. Watch a lot of the shows that really don't apply to the United States because, like World War One, in World War Two we entered the war late. None of the fighting is on our territory, except, of course, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Um, the Imitation Game, if you have not seen it, it will absolutely blow you away. One of the smartest, most interesting movies. And what's his face? Cumberbatch is amazing. And no, he's not Doctor Strange in that movie. Anyway, I will see you soon. Hit me up via Remind if you need anything.